I should have known something was wrong when Emily started ordering the expensive wine at dinner. Not the house red that we'd been drinking for 3 years of marriage, but the $40 bottle of Bordeaux that she'd only order when her mother was paying. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Thomas, we need to talk about money, she said, swirling the wine in her glass, like she was some kind of sommelier instead of an interior designer who specialized in overpriced throw pillows. I looked up from my laptop where I'd been reviewing the quarterly reports for my tech consulting firm. Business was good, really good. We'd landed 3 major contracts this month, and I was finally seeing the payoff from years of 18-hour days and ramen dinners. What about money? I asked, though I had a sinking feeling I already knew. Well, I've been thinking. Now that your business is doing so well, maybe it's time we upgraded our lifestyle a little. You know, moved to a bigger house, got me a better car. Something that reflects our success. Our success. That was rich. Emily had contributed exactly $0 to our household income in the past 6 months, claiming she needed time to find herself creatively. Apparently, finding yourself was expensive and required daily trips to Nordstrom. We've talked about this. I want to reinvest the profits back into the business, build something sustainable. She set down her wine glass with a little more force than necessary. Thomas, I married you because I believed in your potential. But potential doesn't buy nice things. I have friends who are living the life I thought we'd have by now. Friends like her sister Jessica, whose husband inherited a chain of auto dealerships, or her college roommate Brittany, who'd married a plastic surgeon. Emily had always measured our marriage against their bank accounts. I'm working as hard as I can, I said, closing the laptop. But I'm not going to leverage everything we've built just so you can keep up with the Joneses. The Joneses? Emily laughed, but there was no humor in it. Thomas, the Joneses are so far ahead of us they can't even see us in their rearview mirror. That night, I lay awake listening to Emily breathe beside me, thinking about the woman I'd married. She'd been different then, or maybe I'd been too blind to see who she really was. She'd seemed impressed by my ambition, my drive to build something from nothing. Now it felt like she was keeping score, and I was always losing. The next morning, Emily was gone before I woke up. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. Gone shopping with Brittany, don't wait up. It was barely 9 a.m. I made coffee and sat at our kitchen table, the one I'd built myself from reclaimed wood because Emily said it would be authentic, and opened my laptop. 3 new client inquiries had come in overnight. Good news that should have made me happy, but instead, I felt hollow. My phone buzzed. A text from Emily. Saw the perfect dining room set at West Elm. Only $3,200. Can we get it? I stared at the message for a long time before typing back, We already have a dining room set. Her response came immediately. That old thing? Thomas, I'm embarrassed to have people over. That old thing was a solid oak table and chairs I'd inherited from my grandmother. It had character, history, but apparently it didn't have a price tag high enough for Emily's taste. I was still staring at my phone when it rang. Emily's name flashed on the screen. Thomas, you're being ridiculous about the furniture, she said without preamble. Brittany says her husband never questions her purchases. He trusts her judgment. Maybe because her husband makes 3 times what I do, I replied, immediately regretting the defensive tone in my voice. Well, maybe if you had more ambition, you would too. The words hit me like a slap. More ambition? I'd been working 60-hour weeks for the past 2 years, building my business from a one-man operation to a team of 5 employees. I'd sacrificed sleep, social life, and apparently my marriage for success that Emily deemed insufficient. I have plenty of ambition, I said quietly. I just have different priorities. Your priorities are the problem, Thomas. You think small, you act small, and frankly, it's becoming embarrassing. She hung up before I could respond. I sat there for a long time, coffee growing cold in my hands, thinking about the woman who'd just told me I was an embarrassment. This was the same woman who'd cried when I'd proposed, who'd said she couldn't imagine life without me. Now she couldn't imagine life without a bigger house and a luxury car. That evening, Emily came home with shopping bags from 3 different stores. She modeled her purchases like she was on a runway, a dress that cost more than most people's rent, shoes that could have funded a small startup, a handbag that probably had its own insurance policy. "What do you think?" she asked, spinning in the dress. "I think our credit card company is going to send us a thank you note," I said. She stopped spinning. "Thomas, you're being mean." "I'm being realistic. We can't afford this lifestyle you want." "We can't afford it, or you won't afford it." "What's the difference?" "The difference is choice. You choose to be small-time. You choose to reinvest every penny instead of enjoying our success. You choose to make me feel guilty for wanting nice things. And you choose to spend money we don't have on things we don't need to impress people who don't matter." Emily's face went cold. "Those people matter to me. And if you cared about me, they'd matter to you too." That night, we went to bed angry. Emily turned away from me, clutching her phone like a lifeline. I stared at the ceiling, wondering when we'd become strangers living in the same house. The next few days passed in tense silence. Emily spent her time shopping or having lunch with friends, always returning home with bags and stories about other people's fabulous lives. I threw myself into work, staying late at the office to avoid the toxic atmosphere at home. It was Thursday evening when everything changed. I'd come home early, hoping to surprise Emily with dinner reservations at her favorite restaurant, an Olive Branch of sorts. The house was quiet, but I could hear voices coming from the back patio. Emily was on the phone, and something in her tone made me stop in the kitchen instead of announcing my presence. "I know, but what choice do I have?" Emily was saying. "I married him for potential, not reality, and the reality is he's never going to be the man I thought he'd become." I moved closer to the patio door, staying hidden behind the curtain. "No, Brittany, you don't understand. He's not just cheap, he's small. Small dreams, small ambitions, small life. I feel like I'm suffocating." My chest tightened, but I kept listening. "Of course I've thought about leaving, but I can't afford to. My credit cards are maxed out, and I haven't had a real job in months. I'm trapped with a man who thinks a night out at Olive Garden is living large." There was a pause while Brittany responded. "You're right. I need to push harder. Make him understand that if he wants to keep me, he needs to step up. I didn't sign up for this middle-class mediocrity." Another pause. "Exactly. I have options, you know. Remember that trainer I told you about? Marcus? He's been very attentive lately, and he drives a Porsche." I felt the blood drain from my face. "No, Thomas has no idea. He's so buried in his little computer world, he wouldn't notice if I brought Marcus home for dinner." Emily laughed, a sound I'd once found musical but now made my stomach turn. "The man I married would have fought for me. This version just whines about money and hides behind his laptop." I backed away from the door on unsteady legs, Emily's words echoing in my head. Married for potential, small dreams, options. I walked upstairs to our bedroom, my bedroom I realized, and sat on the edge of the bed. 20 minutes later, I heard Emily come inside, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. "Thomas?" she called. "Are you home?" I didn't answer. I sat there in the dark, processing the fact that my marriage was over. Had been over, apparently, for longer than I'd realized. Emily appeared in the doorway, silhouetted by the hallway light. "There you are. I was wondering where you'd gone." Her voice was bright, cheerful, the same tone she'd probably used to tell me she was leaving me for a personal trainer with a Porsche. "How was your day?" I asked quietly. "Oh, you know, lunch with Brittany, a little shopping. Nothing exciting." She began undressing, hanging her clothes carefully in the closet. "How was work?" "Productive," I said. Very productive. And it would be even more productive tomorrow when I started planning my exit strategy. Not from the marriage, Emily had already ended that. From the life we'd built together that was apparently too small for her ambitions. I watched my wife get ready for bed, chattering about her plans for the weekend, her voice a pleasant background noise that meant nothing. She had no idea that I'd heard her conversation, no idea that everything was about to change. As Emily settled into bed beside me, I made my decision. If she thought I was small, if she thought I lacked ambition, she was about to discover just how wrong she could be. Some people think small, others think strategically. I was about to show Emily the difference. I didn't sleep that night. While Emily snored softly beside me, I stared at the ceiling and planned my next moves with the same methodical approach I used for business strategy. By morning, I had a clear action plan. Emily was still sleeping when I left for work at 6 a.m. I drove straight to my office, but instead of diving into client projects, I made a different kind of appointment. Hartley, Morrison & Associates, the receptionist answered. I need to speak with David Hartley about a divorce consultation, this morning, if possible. David Hartley had handled the legal work when I incorporated my business. He was sharp, ruthless, and expensive, exactly what I needed. Mr. Chen, good to see you, Hartley said, shaking my hand 2 hours later. Though I'm sorry about the circumstances. Don't be sorry yet, I said, settling into the leather chair across from his desk. I need to understand my options, specifically how to protect my business assets. Hartley leaned back, steepling his fingers. Tell me about your situation. I laid it out for him. The spending, the complaints, the phone conversation I'd overheard. Hartley took notes, occasionally asking questions about our financial arrangements. The good news is that you started your business before marriage, and it sounds like your wife has contributed nothing to its operations, he said finally. The bad news is that any growth in value during the marriage could be considered marital property. What about debt? I asked. Debt acquired during marriage is typically shared responsibility. Why? I smiled for the first time in days. Because my wife has been very busy with her credit cards. Hartley raised an eyebrow. How busy? I pulled out my phone and showed him the credit card statements I'd photographed that morning. Emily's spending over the past 6 months totaled nearly $30,000. Money we didn't have, secured against credit lines I'd foolishly agreed to co-sign. Jesus, Hartley whistled. She's been busy. The question is, can you prove these purchases were made without your knowledge or consent? Every single one, I said. I have emails where I specifically told her we couldn't afford major purchases. Text messages where I said no to specific items. And I have witnesses who heard her talking about hiding purchases from me. Interesting. Very interesting. Hartley made more notes. Here's what I'm thinking. We need to move fast to protect your business assets and separate your finances. If she's planning to leave you anyway, we want to make sure she can't take half of everything you've built. We spent the next hour mapping out a strategy. First, I would transfer my business assets into a separate corporate structure that predated the marriage. Second, I would close all joint accounts and credit cards, leaving Emily responsible for her own debt. Third, I would document everything, every conversation, every purchase, every lie. One more thing, Hartley said as I prepared to leave. You mentioned she's been friendly with someone else? A personal trainer named Marcus. She thinks I don't know. We might want to document that relationship. Adultery doesn't affect property division in this state, but it can be useful leverage. I left Hartley's office feeling lighter than I had in months. For the first time since Emily's phone call, I felt like I had some control over my situation. My next stop was the bank. Mr. Chen, what can I do for you today? Asked Patricia Williams, the branch manager who'd helped me set up my business accounts. I need to restructure my personal and business finances, I said. Separate everything, close joint accounts, and set up new individual accounts. Patricia had been in banking long enough to read between the lines. I see. Well, let's take care of that for you. Within 2 hours, I'd moved all business funds to new accounts in my company's name only. I'd closed our joint checking and savings accounts, transferring my half to new individual accounts. Most importantly, I'd canceled all joint credit cards. Emily's cards would stop working by tomorrow morning. The thought should have made me feel guilty. Instead, I felt liberated. I spent the rest of the day at work, actually getting things done for the first time in weeks. Without the constant anxiety about Emily's spending and criticism, I found my focus returning. I closed 2 new deals and outlined an expansion plan that could double our revenue within a year. At 5:30, my phone rang. Emily's name flashed on the screen. Thomas, the weirdest thing happened. My credit card was declined at Saks. Can you call the bank? Which card? I asked, though I knew the answer. All of them. I tried 3 different cards, and they were all declined. The salesgirl was so embarrassed for me. I almost smiled. I'll look into it. Please do. I'm supposed to meet Brittany for dinner at that new steakhouse downtown, and I need to pick up my dress from alterations first. Maybe you should cancel dinner, I suggested. Cancel? Thomas, this dinner has been planned for weeks. Brittany's husband is bringing some business associates. It's important. Important for what? I wondered. For her image? For her networking? For her backup plan with Marcus the trainer? I'll see what I can do, I said, and hung up. I didn't call the bank. Instead, I drove home and waited. Emily burst through the door at 7:30, furious and humiliated. Thomas, what the hell is going on with our accounts? I couldn't pay for parking. I had to call Brittany to come get me because I couldn't even put gas in my car. I looked up from my laptop, where I'd been reviewing the corporate restructuring documents Hartley had emailed me. I closed the joint accounts today, I said calmly. Emily stared at me like I'd spoken in a foreign language. You what? I closed our joint accounts and credit cards. You're responsible for your own finances now. You can't do that. Those are my cards too. Actually, I can. And I did. Check your email. You should have received notifications from all the banks. Emily fumbled for her phone, scrolling frantically through her messages. Her face went pale as she read. Thomas, this is insane. You can't just cut off my access to money. I'm not cutting off your access to money. I'm cutting off your access to my money. There's a difference. My money? Thomas, I'm your wife. Are you? I asked quietly. Because yesterday I heard you tell Brittany that you married me for potential, not reality, that you feel trapped with a small man who has small dreams, that you have other options. Emily's face went white, then red. You were listening to my private conversation? In my own house, yes. And I learned some very interesting things about my wife's opinion of our marriage. Thomas, you don't understand. I was just venting. Every wife complains about her husband sometimes. Do they all mention their backup plans? What was his name again? Marcus? Emily's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. I don't know what you're talking about. The personal trainer with the Porsche, the one who's been very attentive. Ring any bells? Thomas, you're being paranoid. Am I? Then you won't mind if I hire a private investigator to document your activities, just to put my paranoid mind at ease. Emily sank into a chair, the fight going out of her. What do you want from me? Nothing, I said, and I meant it. I don't want anything from you anymore. You made it clear that I'm not the man you want to be married to, so I'm making it easy for you. Easy. You call cutting off my credit cards easy. Easier than living with someone who thinks I'm an embarrassment. Easier than pretending we have a marriage when we really have a financial arrangement that's not working out for either of us. Emily was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was small. What happens now? Now you figure out how to pay for the lifestyle you've been living. The credit card debt is in your name, all $30,000 of it. The car lease is in your name. Your shopping habits are your responsibility. 30,000? Emily's voice cracked. It can't be that much. I pulled out a folder of printed statements and slid it across the coffee table. See for yourself. Emily flipped through the pages, her face growing paler with each statement. Thomas, I can't pay this. I don't have a job. Then I suggest you get one, or call Marcus. I'm sure a man who drives a Porsche can help with your financial situation. This is cruel, Emily whispered. No, I said, standing up. Cruel is staying married to someone and lying to them every day. Cruel is spending money you don't have while complaining that your husband doesn't make enough. Cruel is having backup plans while pretending to be committed to your marriage. I walked toward the stairs, then turned back. I'm staying at the office tonight. Tomorrow I'll be back to pack some things. I suggest you use the time to figure out your next move. Thomas, wait. Can't we talk about this? Work something out? I looked at the woman I'd married, sitting in our living room surrounded by shopping bags she couldn't afford, pleading with the small man she'd been planning to leave anyway. We're past talking, Emily. You made your choice when you decided I wasn't enough for you. Now live with it. I drove back to my office and spent the night on the couch in my private office, but I didn't sleep. Instead, I worked on my expansion plans, energized by a clarity I hadn't felt in years. My phone buzzed constantly with texts from Emily, apologies, explanations, promises to change. I deleted them without reading most of them. At dawn, I showered in the office bathroom and put on the spare suit I kept for client emergencies. I had a busy day ahead. There were contracts to finalize, employees to brief on our expansion, and a new life to build. A life that would be exactly as big as I wanted it to be. 3 weeks after I'd left Emily to deal with her financial reality, I was settling into my new routine. I'd rented a sleek downtown apartment, nothing fancy but modern and mine. The office had become my second home, and business was booming. Turns out, when you're not constantly stressed about your marriage, you make better decisions. My assistant Rita had been invaluable during the transition. A 60-year-old woman with grown kids and no patience for drama, she'd helped me organize my new life with military efficiency. Your lawyer called, she said, poking her head into my office Tuesday morning. The papers are ready for Emily to sign. Any word from her attorney? She doesn't have one yet. Apparently, attorneys cost money. Rita's dry smile said everything about what she thought of my soon-to-be ex-wife. I was reviewing the divorce documents when my phone rang. Emily's number flashed on the screen. I'd been ignoring her calls for 2 weeks, but curiosity got the better of me. Hello, Emily. Thomas, thank God. I've been trying to reach you. Her voice sounded different, strained, desperate. Good. What do you need? I asked, keeping my tone neutral. I need help. The credit card companies are calling every day. They're threatening to garnish my wages, but I don't have wages to garnish. I applied for jobs, but nobody's hiring, and the ones that are don't pay enough to cover my minimum payments. That sounds like a personal problem. Thomas, please. I know I hurt you, but I'm drowning here. Can't we work something out? Like what? Maybe I could come work for your company? You're expanding, right? You could use someone with my skills. I almost laughed. Emily's skills consisted of spending money and complaining about not having enough of it. I don't think that would be appropriate, I said. Appropriate? Thomas, I'm going to lose my car. I had to move in with my mother. Do you know how humiliating that is? Actually, I did know. I'd lived with my parents for 2 years after college, working 60-hour weeks and saving every penny to start my business. But Emily had never shown much interest in my humiliation back then. Have you talked to Marcus about helping out? I asked. Silence on the other end of the line. Thomas, that was never... Marcus and I were just friends. You misunderstood what you heard. Did I? Because I have some interesting photos that suggest otherwise. Another silence, longer this time. What photos? I'd hired a private investigator the week after I moved out. Not for the divorce, since adultery wasn't relevant in our no-fault state, but for my own peace of mind. The photos he'd delivered were quite illuminating. Emily and Marcus at dinner, Emily and Marcus at his apartment, Emily and Marcus in various states of undress in his apartment. The ones of you and Marcus at Romano's last Tuesday, and the ones from his apartment afterward. Very artistic lighting. You had me followed? Emily's voice rose an octave. I had my interests protected. There's a difference. This is insane, Thomas. You're acting like some kind of stalker. I'm acting like someone who doesn't want to be lied to anymore. Speaking of Marcus, how's that working out for you? Still driving the Porsche? I don't know what you mean. But I could hear it in her voice. Something had gone wrong with her backup plan. Let me guess, I said. Marcus wasn't as financially stable as he appeared? Turns out the Porsche was leased, and he's been living paycheck to paycheck like most personal trainers? Emily's sharp intake of breath told me I'd hit the mark. How did you… Because I had him investigated too. Fascinating reading. Did you know he owes $12,000 in back taxes? And that the Porsche got repossessed last week? You son of a jerk. Now we're getting to the real Emily. I was wondering when she'd show up. Thomas, you can't do this to me. I'm your wife. Not for much longer. You'll be receiving divorce papers this week. I suggest you find a lawyer, though I understand they're expensive. I hung up and sat back in my chair, feeling oddly satisfied. For 3 years, Emily had held all the cards in our relationship. The beautiful wife who could leave any time, the woman who was doing me a favor by staying with small, unambitious me. Now the tables had turned and she was discovering what life looked like without my financial support. Rita knocked on my door. Everything okay? You look pleased with yourself. Just taking care of some old business, I said. Good, because you have new business to focus on. The Henderson Group wants to meet about that enterprise software project. Could be worth $200,000. I spent the rest of the day preparing for the Henderson meeting, but my concentration kept drifting to Emily's situation. I wasn't a cruel man, but I wasn't a pushover either. She'd made her bed, quite literally, with Marcus, and now she could lie in it. That evening, I was working late when my phone rang again. This time it was Brittany, Emily's friend and enabler. Thomas, we need to talk. Hello, Brittany. How can I help you? You can help by stopping this vindictive campaign against Emily. She's my friend, and I don't like seeing her suffer. Her suffering is self-inflicted, I said. I didn't force her to max out credit cards or cheat on our marriage. She made mistakes, but you're being unnecessarily cruel. Cutting off her money, having her followed, it's obsessive. It's strategic. There's a difference. Thomas, I know you're hurt, but this isn't you. The man Emily married wouldn't do these things. You're right, I said. The man Emily married was a pushover who let her walk all over him while she planned her exit strategy. That man is gone. What do you want from her? Nothing. That's what Emily never understood. I don't want her money. She doesn't have any. I don't want her apologies. They're meaningless. I don't want her back. She poisoned that well. I just want her to leave me alone and deal with the consequences of her choices. And if she can't? What if she loses everything? Then she'll learn what it's like to build something from nothing. It's a valuable experience, very character building. Brittany was quiet for a moment. You've changed, Thomas. No, I've evolved. Emily wanted a man with more ambition, more drive, more ruthlessness. Congratulations, she created him. She just won't be around to enjoy the results. I hung up and returned to my work, but I was interrupted again 20 minutes later by Rita's voice over the intercom. Thomas, there's someone here to see you. Says it's urgent. Who is it? Emily Chen, and she doesn't look happy. I sighed. I'd been expecting this confrontation, but I'd hoped to avoid it at the office. Send her in. Emily walked into my office looking like a woman who'd lost a war. Her clothes were still expensive, but they looked worn now. Her hair was perfectly styled, but her makeup couldn't hide the stress lines around her eyes. Nice place, she said, looking around at the modern furniture and city view. Business must be good. It is. What do you want, Emily? I want to understand what happened to my husband, because the man sitting in this office isn't the man I married. The man you married was a fool, I said. He worked 18-hour days to build a business while his wife spent money he didn't have and complained that he wasn't successful enough. He ignored the signs that his marriage was over because he was too busy trying to make his wife happy. That man was weak. That man loved me. That man loved an illusion. He thought he was married to a partner, but he was really married to a parasite. Emily flinched like I'd slapped her. That's not fair. Isn't it? In 3 years of marriage, how much money did you contribute to our household? How many sacrifices did you make for my business? How many times did you support my decisions instead of undermining them? Emily opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again. That's what I thought, I said. You were never my wife, Emily. You were my most expensive employee, and you weren't very good at your job. I loved you, she said quietly. No, you loved what you thought I could become. You loved the potential for a bigger house, a luxury car, a lifestyle that would impress your friends. You never loved me. Emily sank into the chair across from my desk. What do you want me to say? That I made mistakes? I made mistakes. That I hurt you? I hurt you. But Thomas, I'm losing everything. Can't you find some compassion? I had compassion for 3 years, I said. I had compassion when you spent money we didn't have. I had compassion when you criticized my ambitions and compared me to other men. I had compassion when you lied to me about Marcus. My compassion account is overdrawn. So that's it? You're just going to watch me lose everything? I'm not watching anything. I'm building a business and getting on with my life. What happens to you is no longer my concern. Emily stood up, her composure finally cracking. You bastard. You self-righteous, vindictive bastard. There's the real Emily again. I prefer her to the fake one who pretends to be sorry. You think you've won, don't you? You think you've gotten your revenge? I don't think about you enough to want revenge, I said, which wasn't entirely true, but had the desired effect. Emily's face went white. I hate you. I know. The difference is, I don't care anymore. She turned and walked toward the door, then stopped. This isn't over, Thomas. Yes, it is. Sign the divorce papers and move on with your life. Find someone else to support your shopping habit. Maybe I will? Good luck with that. I hear the market for high-maintenance women with bad credit is pretty limited these days. Emily slammed the door on her way out, rattling the windows. Rita appeared a few minutes later with a cup of coffee and a concerned expression. You okay, boss? I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. She seemed upset. Emily's been upset for 3 years. She just finally has a good reason for it. Rita studied my face for a moment. You know, my ex-husband used to say that living well is the best revenge. Smart man? He was, but he also used to say that revenge is a dish best served cold. I looked up at her. Meaning? Meaning you've served the appetizer, but I have a feeling the main course is still coming. Rita was right, as usual. Emily might be down, but she wasn't out, and I was beginning to realize that a desperate Emily might be more dangerous than a comfortable one. But I'd learned something important over the past few weeks. I was much better at this game than I'd thought. Emily had underestimated the small man with small dreams. It was a mistake she was going to regret. 2 months after Emily's office visit, I thought the worst was behind us. The divorce papers had been filed, our assets were divided, and Emily had moved back in with her mother permanently. I'd heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd finally found a job, retail at a department store, a far cry from her interior design dreams, but enough to start paying down her debt. I should have known she wouldn't go quietly. The first sign of trouble came on a Thursday morning when Rita burst into my office looking rattled. Thomas, we have a problem. I just got off the phone with Henderson Group. They're canceling the contract. I looked up from my computer, confused. Canceling? We haven't even started the project yet. What's their reason? They said they'd received some concerning information about the company's stability and your personal character. They don't want to do business with us. My stomach dropped. What kind of information? They wouldn't specify, but they mentioned something about financial irregularities and questions about your integrity. I knew immediately who was behind this. Emily might not have had money or job skills, but she had something potentially more dangerous: connections and a willingness to use them. Get me David Hartley on the phone, I told Rita, and start making a list of all our current clients and prospects. We need to do damage control. Over the next hour, the scope of Emily's campaign became clear. She'd been systematically contacting my business associates, spreading rumors about financial problems, suggesting that I was under investigation for tax evasion, hinting that the company was on the verge of bankruptcy. She'd been clever about it, never making direct accusations, just raising questions and expressing concern as my estranged wife. 3 more clients called to cancel contracts. 2 prospects postponed meetings indefinitely. My business was hemorrhaging money and reputation. This is tortious interference, Hartley said when I explained the situation. We can sue her for damages. With what proof? She's been careful not to put anything in writing. It's all word of mouth, friend-to-friend conversations. Then we need to get proof. Document everything. Record conversations if it's legal in your state. Gather witnesses. I spent the rest of the day in crisis mode, calling clients to reassure them, meeting with my employees to explain the situation, and working with Hartley to develop a legal strategy. But I knew that by the time we could prove Emily's sabotage and get a court order to stop it, my business might be destroyed. That evening, I sat in my apartment reviewing the damage. In 1 week, Emily had cost me nearly $500,000 in canceled contracts, and probably twice that in future business. She'd been more strategic than I'd given her credit for. My phone rang. Emily's number. Enjoying your week, Thomas? Her voice was different, confident, almost cheerful. This was Emily in her element. Hello, Emily. Interesting timing for your call. Is it? I just wanted to check in, see how business was going. I heard you might be having some challenges. Did you? From whom? Oh, you know how it is in our social circle. People talk. They're concerned about you, Thomas. All this stress from the divorce, the financial pressure. Some people are wondering if you're handling it well. Some people? Or you? Emily laughed, a sound I'd once found charming but now made my skin crawl. Thomas, you're being paranoid. I'm just a concerned wife looking out for her husband's well-being. Ex-wife. And your concern is noted. Actually, I've been thinking, maybe we rushed into this divorce. Maybe we should try counseling, work things out. I mean, if your business is struggling, you might need all the support you can get. The audacity was breathtaking. She was sabotaging my business and then offering to rescue me from the damage she'd caused. Let me guess, I said. You'd be willing to come back, help me rebuild, maybe take a more active role in the business? I do have connections, Thomas. People trust me. I could help repair some of the relationships that have been strained lately. For a price, I assume. Not a price. A partnership. Equal partners in the business and in life. 50% of everything I've built. We're married, Thomas. Technically, I already own 50%. I almost admired her strategy. Destroy my business, then offer to save it in exchange for control. It was ruthless and clever. Exactly the kind of ambition she'd always claimed I lacked. That's an interesting proposal, I said. Can I think about it? Of course. But don't think too long. I'd hate to see things get worse before they get better. The threat was clear. Emily wasn't done with her sabotage campaign. This was just the opening move. I'll be in touch, I said, and hung up. I sat in my apartment for a long time, thinking about my options. I could fight Emily in court, but that would take months and cost a fortune I might not have if she succeeded in destroying my business. I could give in to her demands, but that would mean rewarding her sabotage and spending the rest of my life as her business partner and personal ATM. Or I could beat her at her own game. I called Rita at home. I need you to set up a meeting for tomorrow night. Somewhere public, somewhere Emily would want to be seen. Make it look like a business dinner. What are you planning, Thomas? I'm planning to give Emily exactly what she deserves. The next day, I spent hours preparing for the evening's performance. I called Emily and asked her to meet me at Meridian, the most expensive restaurant in the city, the kind of place she'd always wanted me to take her when we were married. I've been thinking about your proposal, I told her. Maybe we should discuss it. I'm so glad you're being reasonable, Thomas. I'll see you at 8. I arrived at Meridian early and requested a table in the center of the dining room, where we'd be visible to the maximum number of people. Emily's reputation mattered to her more than anything else. It was time to use that against her. Emily arrived exactly on time, dressed in her most expensive outfit, probably one of the last remnants of her shopping sprees. She looked around the restaurant approvingly, nodding to acquaintances, making sure she was seen. This is lovely, Thomas. It reminds me of when we first started dating. Does it? I remember you complaining that I never took you anywhere nice enough. Emily had the grace to look embarrassed. I was young and foolish. I didn't appreciate what I had. The waiter brought menus and wine lists. Emily ordered a bottle of champagne. Dom Perignon, naturally. Are we celebrating? I asked. I hope so. I really think we can work things out, Thomas. We're good together when we're not fighting about money. Speaking of money, I've been reviewing our situation. You're right. The divorce is expensive, and the business challenges aren't helping. Emily leaned forward, sensing victory. Exactly. We're stronger together than apart. There's just one thing I need to understand. The business problems I've been having, the canceled contracts, the rumors about financial irregularities. Do you know anything about that? Emily's smile faltered slightly. What do you mean? I mean, someone has been spreading lies about my business. Someone with inside knowledge of our financial situation and access to our social circle. Someone who would benefit from making me look desperate. Thomas, you're being paranoid again. Am I? Because I have phone records showing calls from your number to Henderson Group, Morrison Industries, and 3 other clients who canceled contracts this week. Emily's face went pale, but she recovered quickly. I may have mentioned to a few people that you were under stress. I was concerned about you. Concerned enough to suggest I was being investigated for tax evasion? I never said that. No, you were careful not to say it directly. You just asked questions. I hope Thomas isn't having problems with the IRS. I'm worried about some of the financial decisions he's been making. Very subtle. Emily took a large sip of champagne. I don't know what you want me to say. I want you to say the truth. You've been sabotaging my business to force me to take you back. You figured if you could make me desperate enough, I'd agree to anything. That's ridiculous. Is it? Because I recorded our phone conversation yesterday, the one where you offered to help repair the relationships that had been strained lately. Very interesting choice of words. Emily's composure cracked. You recorded me? I recorded you threatening my business and trying to extort a partnership. It's all very clear on the recording. You can't use that in court. It's illegal to record someone without their consent. Actually, it's not in this state. One-party consent law. Very convenient. Emily looked around the restaurant, suddenly aware that our conversation was attracting attention from nearby tables. Thomas, lower your voice. Why? Afraid people will hear what kind of person you really are? Please, can we discuss this privately? We are discussing it privately. Just you, me, and everyone else in your favorite restaurant. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. I have something for you. Emily opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside were copies of phone records, transcripts of recorded conversations, and a legal complaint for tortious interference. What is this? It's a lawsuit, Emily. for damages to my business caused by your sabotage campaign. My lawyer estimates the damages at about $2 million. $2 million? Thomas, I don't have $2 million. I know. You don't have $2,000, which is why I'm prepared to offer you a deal. Emily looked up from the papers, hope flickering in her eyes. You're going to call every client and prospect you contacted. You're going to tell them that you were going through a difficult divorce and you said things that weren't true. You're going to apologize and ask them to reconsider doing business with my company. And if I do that, I won't file the lawsuit. You can disappear from my life forever, and we'll call it even. Emily stared at the papers for a long moment. Around us, the restaurant buzzed with conversation, but I could see people glancing our way, curious about the drama unfolding at table 12. You planned this, Emily said quietly. The restaurant, the public setting, the papers. You wanted to humiliate me. I wanted to give you a choice, the same choice you gave me when you sabotaged my business. Accept the consequences of your actions or face something worse. And if I refuse, then I file the lawsuit on Monday morning. I hold a press conference announcing that my estranged wife has been spreading false rumors about my business. I release the recorded conversations to anyone who wants to hear them. Your reputation, what's left of it, will be destroyed. Emily's hands were shaking as she set down the papers. You've become a monster, Thomas. No, I've become what you always said you wanted. Ambitious, ruthless, successful. You created this version of me, Emily. You just don't get to benefit from it. Emily looked around the restaurant one more time, at the people who were now openly staring at our table, at the life she'd wanted but could never afford. Fine, she said quietly. I'll make the calls. All of them. Every client, every prospect. And Emily? She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. If you ever interfere with my business or my life again, I won't be so generous with my settlement offer. Emily stood up on unsteady legs, leaving the papers scattered on the table. I hope you're happy, Thomas. I'm not happy, I said. But I'm free, and that's enough. She walked out of the restaurant without looking back, leaving me alone with the champagne she'd ordered and the wreckage of our marriage. I sat there for a few more minutes, finishing my wine and watching the other diners slowly return to their own conversations. The show was over. Rita was right. Revenge was a dish best served cold. But she was wrong about one thing. I wasn't serving revenge. I was serving justice. Emily had wanted a man with more ambition, more drive, more ruthlessness. She'd gotten exactly what she asked for. She just hadn't expected to be on the receiving end of it. I paid the check and walked out into the cool evening air, feeling lighter than I had in months. My phone was already ringing with calls from clients who'd heard about the scene at Meridian, wanting to know what was happening. I had work to do, a business to rebuild, a reputation to restore, a life to live. Emily had taught me valuable lessons about ambition and ruthlessness. I intended to put them to good use. But first, I was going to go home to my apartment, pour myself a real drink, and toast the end of my marriage to the woman who'd underestimated the small man with small dreams. She'd never make that mistake again.